Prominent surgeon demands teacher be fired over son's failure. The truth surprised everyone. Dr. Samuel Coleman's reputation was untouchable. Top surgeon at the prestigious Oak Ridge Medical Center. His hands literally saved lives. But when the news broke that his son, Jake, flunked one of the most critical exams of his high school career, a tempest brewed. Parents whispered in the hallways of Crestwood High, and a thick tension filled the air. The elite school, nestled in a suburban enclave, suddenly felt like a cauldron of conflicting loyalties. "I want that teacher fired," Dr. Coleman exclaimed, his voice the kind that could silence even the loudest of high school cafeterias. His anger simmered just below the surface, visible in the tightness of his jaw and the fire in his eyes. To him, Mrs. Thompson was incompetent at best and a saboteur at worst. How could she fail his son? But Mrs. Thompson, the passionate and devoted educator, stood her ground. With her frizzy curls and round glasses, she challenged the doctor with a calmness that unnerved him. "Dr. Coleman, Jake didn't fail because of my teaching. He had assistance from cheat notes hidden in his sleeve." Her words dropped like a bombshell, echoing in the shocked faces surrounding them. As investigations unfurled, parents found themselves torn between the powerful surgeon and the soulful teacher. Silent accusations flared, and most favored Dr. Coleman. Fearing repercussions from someone so influential. "What does she know?" they whispered. "There has to be a mistake." Days passed, and revelations emerged, some unsettling. Jake's academic history wasn't perfect. He'd taken shortcuts before. It turned out, amidst the chaos, that his mother, a woman Dr. Coleman had long since tried to forget, held secrets of her own. Emily, once a bright light in Samuel's past, was linked to Jake's tangled web of deceit. "You think he's failing because of me?" she spat at Dr. Coleman during a heated confrontation. "How about you reflect on your own choices?" The drama intensified. Mrs. Thompson faced increasing scrutiny, her own future teetering on the edge. She received anonymous threats, pressure mounting from parents demanding her resignation. The tension was a taut rope stretched to the breaking point. Did she safeguard her career or expose the truth about Jake's dishonesty? But revealing those secrets meant risking everything, not just for her, but potentially for Jake, an innocent caught in a storm of bad decisions. Could she protect the boy while standing firm against a surgeon's wrath? As the investigation swirled, the air grew thick with unspoken truths. Would the truth about Jake's academic integrity come to light? Or would Dr. Coleman's influence silence Mrs. Thompson forever? The room fell silent, the weight of uncertainty heavy as the last echoes of conversation faded away. "Ei, antes de continuarmos com essa história incrível, preciso te fazer alerta importante. Muitos inscritos têm relatado que o YouTube removeu suas inscrições sem aviso. Dá só uma conferida rápida no botão vermelho aí embaixo para garantir que você ainda está inscrito no canal. Não quero que você perca nenhum conteúdo exclusivo que vem por aí. E já que você está aí, deixa aquele like poderoso que me ajuda muito com o algoritmo. Ah, e me conta nos comentários, de qual cidade você está assistindo? Adoro conhecer cada pessoa incrível que faz parte dessa comunidade. Sua participação faz toda a diferença. Vamos interagir. As the tension hung in the classroom, the air felt thick with unsaid accusations and fears. Mrs. Thompson stood her ground, heart racing but determined. Suddenly, the classroom door swung open with a force that rattled the loose papers on her desk. In strode Principal Johnson, his face a mask of urgency. "We need to talk, now." Every eye turned towards him, whispers bubbling in the background like a shaken soda can. Dr. Coleman's anger faltered for a brief moment, confusion flickering in his eyes. "What's going on?" he demanded, crossing his arms. In a hushed tone, Principal Johnson called for everyone to step into the hallway. Outside, the corridor echoed with a mix of footsteps and murmurs. "What's happening?" someone asked, but the unease in the air prevented a clear answer. Once gathered, Principal Johnson cleared his throat. "I just received disturbing news. Jake, he's gone. No one knows where he is." Gasps erupted, an electric jolt of shock passing through the group. Coleman's expression shifted from disbelief to panic. "What do you mean he's gone? How can he just disappear?" His voice rose unnaturally, ringing in the tense silence. Mrs. Thompson's mind raced. Was this connected to the exam? Did Jake flee out of shame? She had seen students panic before, but never like this. "Is there any evidence? Any note?" she pressed, trying to grasp what this all meant. "Nothing. It's as if he vanished," Johnson replied, agitation evident in his tone. "The last thing we know is he left school earlier today during lunch." Before another word could be spoken, distant sirens wailed, drawing nearer. The group turned as two police cars pulled up, lights flashing like a surreal emergency signal. The night had suddenly turned ominous. Then, just as the officers began to question students, a shrill scream pierced the air. The sound echoed off the walls, slicing through the frantic murmurs. Everyone froze. It came from the direction of the school's rear entrance. "Principal." Johnson surged forward, pupils trailing behind him like startled ducklings. They rounded the corner and skidded to a halt. There, crumpled on the ground, was Jake. His body lay motionless, and a crowd quickly gathered, faces marred with horror and confusion. Dr. Coleman rushed forward, shoving through the gathering mass. "Jake!" he called out, voice breaking. But as he dropped to his knees, the sight transformed him from furious father to terrified parent. The police arrived just as chaos erupted. They shouted orders, trying to maintain control over the scene. "Back up," an officer barked, but no one budged. Eyes were glued to the crumpled figure, hearts pounding in unison. "Get an ambulance," someone yelled, but it felt distant, like an echo trapped in the atmosphere. In the upheaval, Mrs. Thompson's gaze fell upon a crumpled piece of paper peeking from Jake's sleeve, the same one she had heard his father accuse her of facilitating. She instinctively reached out for it, fingers trembling. What was this? At that moment, she heard fragments of whispers around her. He was in trouble, cheating, fights. They swirled around, each word adding another layer to the chaos. Was the lying and cheating just the start? As the ambulance sirens wailed in the distance, fear gripped the hearts of parents and students alike. Nothing was as they thought it was. Nothing was what it seemed. The uncertainty of Jake's fate hung heavy in the air. Ugly secrets clawing to the surface like drowning men, and in the midst of it all, Mrs. Thompson felt another chill. Had she truly known him at all? And that crumpled paper? What had Jake kept hidden all this time? Just as the first responders arrived, the question lingered like a dark cloud over them. Was Jake's fall from grace a symptom of a much deeper problem? The room fell silent, the weight of lurking truths crushing the frantic hopes for a happy ending. What more lay buried beneath Jake's untimely downfall? As the paramedics rushed toward Jake's motionless body, the air crackled with electric tension. Mrs. Thompson's heart raced. She had just seen that crumpled paper peeking from Jake's sleeve. A cheat note, or something much darker. She couldn't ignore the flutter of fear in her stomach. What if things were more complicated than anyone realized? Dr. Coleman knelt beside Jake, his face a mask of panic and disbelief. "Wake up, Jake! Please, wake up!" His voice cracked, a raw edge breaking through the facade of control he usually wielded with ease. The sirens wailed in the background, adding to the chaotic symphony of heartbeats echoing around him. And then, from the crowd, another shriek pierced the air. But this one was different. It was a voice they all recognized. Emily, Jake's mother. She pushed through the throng, eyes wide with terror, masking the past she hoped to keep buried. "What happened? What's wrong with my boy?" Her hands trembled as she reached for Dr. Coleman, desperation fueling each step. "Get back!" an officer barked, his voice loud enough to shatter the onlooker's shock. But Emily kept coming. "Jake!" she cried, collapsing next to him. For a fleeting second, the anger between her and Dr. Coleman simmered, but the moment turned nonetheless into something darker. Suddenly, one of the medics turned to the officers, shouting, "We need backup here! He's not breathing." The crowd gasped, a collective intake of breath filled with dread. In the chaos, Mrs. Thompson's eyes were drawn back to that crumpled paper. She couldn't ignore it. With shaky hands, she reached out and snatched it before anyone could notice. It felt like a betrayal. Yet she was compelled. It contained answers. As she unfolded it slowly, words blurred together until she zeroed in on what it read. "I'm sorry. I can't be like you. It's all a lie." Her breath hitched. This wasn't just a warning about cheating, it was a cry for help. But the weight of the message shattered her focus. Instinct told her to hide it, to protect Jake, but her instincts tingled with something else. Guilt. What if she was complicit in his failure? Meanwhile, the crowd began murmuring, turning the air thick with suspicion. "Does anyone know where he might have gone before this?" an officer asked, scanning the faces. A student stepped forward timidly. He mentioned feeling like a failure. That sparked a series of whispers, shifting blame, and the tension escalated once more. Emily, her face streaked with tears, suddenly shot up and faced Dr. Coleman. "You think this is my fault? You think I drove him to this?" The accusation cut. "Look at yourself. You never saw him. You just saw a picture of perfection." The disdain in her voice echoed, stirring old grudges buried beneath years of hurt. Dr. Coleman, his composure faltering, stepped back as if she slapped him. Their history played out in the eyes of onlookers. Years of resentment boiling over in this moment, fueling the fire. The medics frantically worked on Jake, and out of nowhere, he coughed violently. Everyone paused, breaths held. For a split second, it felt as if hope flickered. But then Jake's eyes fluttered open, but not with clarity. A familiar look of fear washed over him. One that screamed, "I'm trapped." And just like that, the reality of every unspoken truth shattered. The stranglehold of secrets tightened around them all. But then the crowd gasped as Jake's eyes locked onto his mother. "Mom!" And just as quickly as it began, another scream erupted. Only this time, it wasn't from a mouth, but from a haunting voice echoing behind them. "You can't hide the truth forever." Everyone turned, eyes wide, hearts pounding. Fear wrapped around them like a vice as the past came crashing back into the present. Who had spoken? What truth? In that moment, everything changed. Each thread of their tangled lives threatened to unravel before them. Just when they thought they might resolve the chaos, it deepened. A chasm of unspoken secrets opened wide, pulling them into shadows that none could escape. What lay ahead? Only darkness whispered back. As the words hung thick in the air, all eyes turned toward the source of the chilling voice. Horror rippled through the crowd. A figure stepped forward from the shadows. A classmate, Alex, his face hardened with a mix of anger and sadness. "You can't hide the truth forever," he shouted again, his voice cutting through the panic like a knife. Dr. Coleman felt his stomach drop. "What do you mean, Alex?" he shot back, confusion splintering his authority. "What truth?" Alex's eyes burned brightly as he advanced, each step steady, drawing in every gaze like a magnet. "You've got it all wrong," he spat, pointing directly at Jake, weak and gasping on the ground. "This isn't just about a test or cheating. It runs deeper, much deeper." Mrs. Thompson's heart raced, memories flooding back. She recognized that look in Alex's eyes. "What do you know?" she managed to ask, her voice trembling. "They were friends, Jake and I. He was struggling, really struggling." Alex's tone shifted, betraying a vulnerability that captivated the audience. He felt he had to keep up with this perfect image you all expect. He was scared of failing, of being like one of us. Cautious whispers stirred in the crowd. "What are you saying?" Emily demanded, wiping tears from her cheeks. "What do you know about my boy?" "I know he wasn't just cheating. He was being bullied every single day." Alex's voice cracked, emotion spilling over. "You were all so focused on grades that you ignored what really mattered. Jake was desperate." Dr. Coleman took a step back, his fury replaced by a strange unease. "Bullied? By who?" A slow murmur crept through the crowd as some turned to whisper amongst themselves. "I saw some kids pick on him in the locker room," one girl admitted, her voice quivering. "I didn't want to believe it," Alex continued, sweat beading on his forehead. "I thought if I stood up, it would only make things worse for him. We thought he'd be fine, but look where we are now." Mrs. Thompson felt her heart pound painfully in her chest. She'd been so focused on Jake's schoolwork, on the choices he made. The cheating had seemed like an act of rebellion, an affront to her teaching. But was it more than that? Had she failed to see the bigger picture? Suddenly, Jake stirred again, gasping for breath, as if trying to find words. "Alex, he strained, his voice barely a whisper. "It's not like that. But just as the hope of clarity ignited, a second voice emerged from the crowd that silenced them all. "You think it was just bullying?" A girl stepped forward, her expression a mix of sorrow and rage. "You don't know the half of it." The crowd fell still as more eyes turned to her, faces etched with confusion. Jake wasn't just bullied for grades or tests. There's something else, something darker. Her words were heavy, saturating the air with dread. He was involved in things none of you ever noticed. We were all involved. A collective gasp swept through the crowd. Confusion and fear morphed into whispers of dread. "What do you mean?" Dr. Coleman asked, barely able to keep his thoughts straight. The girl's expression hardened. "Drugs, cheating rings, and fights. Jake was in over his head, and you never saw it. He was a part of something." Her voice trailed off, leaving a gaping hole of uncertainty in her wake. As the realization hit, the weight of 1,000 potential regrets filled the air. Everyone stood rigid, grappling with the cascading secrets that had now consumed everything they believed about Jake and his struggles. In that moment, Mrs. Thompson clenched the crumpled note tighter. The message had shifted. Now it spoke of more than just academic failure. It became a symbol of a life entangled in shadows. What had she overlooked? What else had Jake hidden? "Did you know?" Dr. Coleman directed at Emily, unable to mask the hurt in his voice. "Did you know this was happening to Jake?" Emily shook her head, fear and denial washing over her features. "No, I trusted. I didn't know." The air grew thick with tension. The faces in the crowd expressed confusion, anger, and disbelief. Each person was left grappling with their own complicity. Just then, Jake gasped one last time and locked eyes with his mother. "Mom, help me, please." And as he whispered those words, darkness loomed, sealing their fates in a haze of fear and regret. What lay ahead remained a mystery, but one truth echoed above all others. The past couldn't stay buried forever. As Jake's voice trailed off, echoing a plea that hung in the air, a figure emerged from the crowd, stepping forward with a presence that struck like a thunderclap. It was Sophia, a girl from the year below, her eyes wild with a mix of fury and desperation. "You think you know everything?" she shouted, her voice piercing through the chaos. "You have no idea what's really going on." The crowd turned. Confusion morphed into apprehension as everyone held their breath, caught in the web of her words. "I've seen things," Sophia continued, her chest heaving with emotion. "Things you wouldn't believe. Jake's struggles weren't just about grades. He was caught up in something dark." Dr. Coleman shifted uncomfortably, the lines of his face tightening. "What are you talking about?" he demanded, eyes narrowing. The students murmured among themselves, tension building as they awaited her revelation. "The cheating, the drugs. It's more than you think. Jake was trying to escape. We all were." Sophia's hands trembled as she spoke, her voice raw with emotion. "You think he's just a victim? He was chasing a high, trying to fit in, and it spiraled out of control. You didn't even see it, did you?" Emily recoiled, tears streaming down her cheeks. "What do you mean, chasing a high? Is this some sort of accusation?" Her voice cracked, an overwhelming sadness drowning her outrage. As the crowd listened in icy silence, Sophia glanced at Jake, who was still gasping for breath, confusion written all over his face. "You were hiding in plain sight, Jake. You were deep in it. How could you let this happen?" Jake's eyes widened, guilt washing over him like a dark wave. "No, that's not. I wasn't." "Save it," Sophia interrupted, her anger flaring. "You think this pain just happens? The sleepless nights, the fights? There's a whole network at this school. Kids with power. And you got caught up in it." She stepped closer to him, pleading for him to hear her. And just as the reality sank in, a loud cracking noise split the air. A sudden explosion of sound sent the crowd into a panicked frenzy. They turned as a cloud of smoke erupted from the direction of the parking lot. The unmistakable screech of sirens intensified as several squad cars barreled into the scene. "Run!" someone screamed. Shouts erupted as students scattered, a wave of terror cascading. Through the crowd, Dr. Coleman instinctively grabbed Emily, pulling her close as chaos unfolded. "Stay here. We need to make sure Jake's okay," he shouted, heart racing. But then, from the edge of the chaos, another scream pierced through, the unmistakable sound of fear mixed with pain. "Help! Someone's hurt!" At that moment, all eyes turned. A figure was collapsed next to a car, the movement weak, body trembling. It was Alex, the boy who had stood up for Jake, now on the ground, hands clutching his side, blood seeping through his fingers. I didn't mean to. I just wanted to help, he managed to choke out, face paling. Dr. Coleman's heart dropped. He spun towards the source of the explosion. What the hell is happening? He barked. But the question hung in the air unanswered. Sophia staggered back, her resolve waning in the face of violence. This wasn't just a crisis. It was spiraling out of control into something far more twisted. Secrets were unraveling. Lives were at stake, and all around them, smoke spiraled into the night sky like an omen. As paramedics rushed to attend to Jake and Alex, the crowd still reeled from the impact. Emily clutched Dr. Coleman, her eyes darting from Jake's pale face to Alex's bloodied form. What had started as a collapse had taken a sharp turn into chaos. A chaos fueled by drugs, secrets, and now violence. The night seemed to stretch on endlessly, shadows deepening, masking. The turmoil that lay in waiting, the tension between loyalty and betrayal shivered in the air, leaving every soul present gasping for answers. Where did their loyalties lie now? As the sirens echoed in the background, uncertainty clouded their hearts. What dark truths had yet to be unveiled? And who was truly at fault in this tangled mess of mistaken identities and hidden lives? Shadows shifted in the night, and the haunting reality was that the answers they sought might change everything they thought they knew. As Jake's voice trailed off, the cold grip of dread wrapped tightly around the crowd. Paramedics were frantically trying to stabilize him, but all eyes were on Sophia, whose emotions had momentarily ignited a flicker of hope in the swirling chaos. "What do you know, Sophia?" Dr. Coleman demanded, again the authoritative figure, but this time uncertainty tinged his tone. Sophia held their collective silence, the weight of her revelation lingering in the air. "It's about more than just school," she shouted, eyes darting around. "Jake was tangled up with a group that does things, bad things." Dr. Coleman shifted, unsettled, his instincts as a father slipping. "What kind of things?" he pressed. But before Sophia could respond, a loud crash echoed through the parking lot. A car window shattered, glass raining down like glitter in the chaos. Everyone turned in horror as a silhouette emerged from the dark, a figure wrapped in shadows, face partially obscured by a hoodie. "You're all too late," the voice called out, a mocking edge riding the words. "You should have listened before." Panic surged through the students. "Who are you?" Emily shouted, voice shaking as her grip tightened on Dr. Coleman's arm. "It doesn't matter. What matters is you're all guilty. You've all let the truth fester." The figure stepped closer, and for an instant, the moonlight illuminated their face. Familiarity struck like lightning. It was one of Jake's classmates. The quiet kid, Danny, who kept mostly to himself. Gasps rippled through the crowd. "Danny?" Sophia murmured in disbelief. "Yeah, that's right. You thought you could ignore the truth? You all looked the other way while Jake struggled." His voice trembled with resentment. "You think he cheated because he didn't study? No, he was drowning, and nobody came to help." The lump in Mrs. Thompson's throat grew as she realized the implications of his words. "But you didn't have to," she started, but Danny cut her off sharply. "I was there. I saw the fights, the drugs. I was the one who tried to pull him out, but he fell deeper. You should have noticed something was off." And that's when the world tilted. Emily stepped back, her face pale, as if she just realized something monumental. "Wait a second," she whispered, eyes darting between Danny and Jake, still gasping for breath. "You're saying you knew about this all along?" "I didn't know everything," Danny snapped. "But I saw the way he was treated, the way he tried to be someone he wasn't just to fit in. You all pushed him into a corner, and he fought back by masking his pain. Before anyone could process the revelation, another sound erupted. A crackling explosion that lit up the night sky. A small fire ignited in the parking lot, sending shards of light spilling across the chaos. "Get back!" an officer yelled, panic now mirroring the crowd's emotions. In the commotion, Jake's eyes widened, locking onto the figure crouched next to him. "Danny," he gasped, voice barely audible. "Help me!" Danny hesitated, a moment of reckoning reflected in his eyes. Then he turned, every ounce of bitterness replaced by concern. "Jake, I thought you'd never ask for help." But before he could move, the explosions continued, ringing in their ears. Suddenly, from the splintering chaos, a voice cried out, "Look out!" It was another student, pointing toward the direction of the fire. Flames danced higher, threatening to consume everything in sight. Everything exploded in a rush of shadows and light. In the turmoil, Jake's crumpled papers slipped from Mrs. Thompson's hand, lost to the chaos. But amidst the fiery commotion, a single phrase caught fire in the air, a haunting echo of secrecy spilling from the confusion. "You're all in this together. What's done cannot be undone." The truth hung in the air, wrapping tightly around each heart like a noose. As the reality of their intertwined fates sank in, fear tightened its grip once more. What secrets had they all been hiding? What was the cost of their ignorance? As the flames flickered away into the shadows, illuminating the staggering faces around them, a chilling realization dawned. This wasn't just about Jake's fall anymore. It was about the darkness that had always lurked beneath the surface, ready to rise. And now, with the stakes higher than ever, everything they thought they knew hung precariously in the balance. As the flames rose higher, lapping at the night sky with an angry hiss, the crowd was momentarily paralyzed. Dr. Coleman watched in horror as shadows danced along the faces of students, fear and disbelief etched deep within their eyes. "We need to get out of here," he shouted, pulling Emily close, his heart racing. But the chaos around them was too thick, too loud. "Jake," Emily's voice broke, her eyes locked on her son, who lay trembling on the ground, trapped between fear and guilt. "You can't leave him." She struggled against Dr. Coleman's grip, desperation clawing at her insides. Sophia surged forward, shouting for help. "We can't just stand here. Someone has to help him." The urgency in her voice cut through the cacophony of panic. A group of students, fueled by adrenaline and a newfound sense of responsibility, began pushing through the crowd to reach Jake. Suddenly, amidst the crowd's chaos, a metal sound rang out. Crash! A firework, ignited by the commotion, shot up into the sky, illuminating the figures in the crowd. Moments later, another explosion echoed just beyond the parking lot, sending a wave of shrieks through the students. "Move!" Dr. Coleman shouted, steering Emily away from the oncoming chaos. But in that moment, he caught a glimpse of Jake, struggling to sit up. "Get him out!" he yelled, directing the students around him. As they reached Jake, Alex, bloodied and bruised, pushed his way through. "Jake, you need to listen to me. This isn't over," he gasped, the pain etched in his features. "You can't keep running from it." Jake blinked, confusion mingling with desperation. But then the fear broke through, his voice a whisper. "I don't know how to fix this. I can't." "Stop!" Sophia's voice rang clear. "You can start by being honest about everything." The weight of her words settled heavily in the air, urging everyone to confront the truth they'd been avoiding. A flicker of realization passed over Jake's face and with a shaky breath, he nodded. "Okay, I'll tell them. I'll tell everyone." The crowd stilled, hanging on to his words. The truth was about to surface, and there was no turning back. Just as Jake was about to speak, another voice rose from the shadows. The hoodie figure Danny, eyes blazing. "You think honesty changes anything? You're still part of this mess." "Shut up!" someone shouted back. The tension snapped, and chaos threatened to bubble over once more. "No!" Jake's voice boomed, silencing the crowd. "I won't hide anymore." He dragged air deeply into his lungs, ready to unburden himself. As he looked around, shame flooded his features. "I cheated, not just on tests. I was scared of failing, of being like my dad." The tension shifted, murmurs rippling through the crowd like a wave. "I didn't want anyone to see me struggle," Jake continued, tears brimming. "But now I see what it caused. I hurt my friends, and I let everyone down. I'm so sorry. I need help." As truth spilled from Jake, a sense of weight lifted. The flames still flickered in the distance, but the chaos began to fade, replaced by a collective realization. They were all in this together, bound by the same fears and regrets. Hours later, as dawn broke, the sky, painted in strokes of gold and pink, the crowd that had once chaotic became a community. With sirens fading into the background, the healing began. Dr. Coleman stood beside Emily, arm linked with hers. "We'll find a way to support him," he promised, voice steady. And in that moment, they discovered a flicker of hope, fragile yet powerful. Life would never be the same, but perhaps they could pave a path forward together. Now, hear this. You need to subscribe immediately to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories we've got lined up. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us reach more viewers. Don't wait even 1 second to flood the comment section with your reactions and theories about this thrilling conclusion. Share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to know how this wraps up. Only the true fans comprehend the importance of supporting our channel with these actions.